We're out here on the Confusion HMA, or Confusion Mountain HMA. We have an AML, or appropriate management level, of 115 for the high end and 70 for the low. And our current population here right now is 320 horses. We have not gathered this particular herd area since 2003, so we are about 8 years out from actually being here gathering. We've done a few things as far as our management to keep horses here a little longer without having to come back in, which has helped us, but this is a very tough piece of real estate for horses to make a living on. And we can, if you look around and you see behind me, there's very few trees. There's very few annual or perennial type plants that put out a whole lot of forage, and we'll point some of those out as to what the horses actually utilize to make to sustain themselves out here on the HMA. One of the key plant species that we monitor the rangelands that the horses really use is what we call a white sage, or a winter fat plant. This plant here has got a lot of protein, and it allows the horses to survive during the winter months and from the fall into the spring. On good years, we can find this plant up here another 4 to 5 inches, and it really helps them pull through. And this is one of those key plant species that we really monitor. We watch the horses get a lot of use out of it and get a lot of nutrition. A couple of the other plant species that we see most commonly out here in the desert is this one here, which is an Indian rice grass. It hasn't started to come on yet. It's still just a little bit cool for it to really start greening up. We are seeing a few of these little fescue plants starting, and at this time of the year, the horses really spend a lot of time chasing that little bit of green that's just starting to come on. The one thing that we find here on the Confusions is the lack of available forage, and you figure we have a acreage that's probably approximately 250,000 acres, which may seem like a lot, and in space it is a big piece of ground. But as you look around, and as you can see right here around me, how much of the inner spaces between the plants does not contain any type of vegetation. It's real small, it's real sparse, it's limited to the amount of available forage for horses to actually live. We're out here on the Conger Mountain HMA. We have an appropriate management level for these horses at a range from 40 to 80, and our current population is around 240. We can look around and see the green up that these horses are chasing in some few areas that will also, as they go after the water or after the grass, and their body conditions will drop, because these initial shoots, as we see right here on this plant next to this sagebrush, has been nipped down already. You know, the horses have already started to use it. You can see this was last year's growth, so we know that we're in their winter range. And then as we look around, we can also see other spots where they haven't hit. So what they're doing right now is just trying to chase that initial green up, and their body conditions will start to show some of the drop. You can see here we've got the new coming in that they haven't utilized. And as we go into the spring to where this grass finally gets substantial enough that they can start putting on weight, their bodies will drop just a little bit. We're also going into that foaling season where the mares will look poor, trying to maintain not only their body conditions, but also that of their unborn colt, and eventually their colt once it hits the ground. What we're looking at here is a needle and thread grass, or Stipa camata. This is the winter feed for the horses over here on their winter ranges. We can see that this here was left from last year, and they haven't touched it at all this year. We can see the green that's coming up in here. You can see the amount of growth that we have that's coming up inside, as opposed to the one next to it that's been utilized already. The general public may wonder why we gather horses off of our public ranges. The reason we gather horses off of our HMAs that we have is because their population increases, and as population increases, that puts a strain on the resource that they need to have in order to sustain themselves out here on the rangelands. Management within the herd areas that we have in the West is very important, and if we can maintain or find ways to suppress the population growth to where it doesn't increase at that 20% we see on an average, then those horses are able to maintain themselves out here on the deserts longer without the interference of us, and we're able to manage them at appropriate management levels over a longer period of time.
Utah is actually the second driest state, and I think we receive in Millard County approximately 6 inches of rain per year. It's extremely important that the resources that we have are managed, because with that amount of moisture, there's no regeneration of any type of vegetation.
There are some habitat manipulations that we can do to increase the forage. We are managing for multiple use, and so there's horses, there's elk, there's pronghorn. We have population objectives set on all of our populations. So we have a public hunt to remove those antlerless animals. In some situations, we're limited by our water resource or precipitation, and there's not a lot of range manipulation that we can do to increase the forages.
All the numbers are in alignment. The range seems to, go along pretty well, and there's enough feed for everything, enough water for everything. But when one of them gets higher than it should be, then the others are the ones that seems to adjust.
I'd say most of the folks in our county enjoy seeing them. I know there's quite a few folks who come in from outside the area to watch the horses, which is a tourism thing for us. They like to see them, but they wouldn't want to see them, just kind of overtake things and just let roam. And for their safety and other people's safety, they like the idea that they're being, responsibly managed, and that there's a plan, and that they can come and have input.
We as the National Mustang Association know that the land has to be protected so that they have enough forage, and that the numbers can't override what there is here for them, or it's a disaster to them. So we're interested in a healthy herd that can stay here and be managed. They're a beautiful animal.
I think people need to do more research. Instead of taking what you read or what you hear, and question and talk to BLM staff, talk to the people that are on the range, and find out what really happens, because a lot of times you're just showing what's sensational, and if you remove that, you can learn the facts for yourself and make up your own mind.